Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So tomorrow is election day and you guys know what that means. Well, we got to do our final predictions. And in this video, we're going to be focusing on the down ballot predictions. And then in a couple of hours, I will drop my presidential final election prediction between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But in this video, we're going to be filling out the gubernatorial races for the governors. We're going to be doing the House map, and we're also going to be doing the Senate map. So do stay tuned for that. But really quickly, I wanted to let you guys know that the merch store, a lot of people said, can you please extend it for just 2 more days? So we did it. It will be gone tonight at midnight, but if you guys do want a last chance to get your hands on some Red Eagle Politics merchandise, now would be the right time. We've got all these great designs. We've got t-shirts, coffee mugs, you name it. We also are doing a special where if you buy a t-shirt or coffee mug or tank top, you can get another one 20% off. Buy one, get one 20% off. The link will be in the description and pinned comment down below. So without further ado, it's time. It's time to predict the final gubernatorial elections. Republicans are going to win Indiana, West Virginia, Missouri, North Dakota, Montana, and Utah by over 10, as well as Vermont, because you have Phil Scott. He is not a conservative Republican. He's more in line with the Democrats, but he happens to be a quote-unquote Republican. So you have that. Democrats in the safe column, they will win Delaware. They will win the state of Washington by over 10. And they're also going to win North Carolina by probably close to that. I think Mark Robinson's going to fall short. It's going to be like, 53 to 43, maybe just a hair under 10 just because Trump's on the ballot. You have a lot of scandals, and North Carolina typically does like to split their tickets. I do think he outruns the polling, but I don't believe he's going to really have a shot at victory. But also New Hampshire, I do believe that Republicans are going to hold New Hampshire, and I do believe that Kelly Ayotte is going to end up winning that race there by a couple of points. So already you have zero change. Republicans hold New Hampshire, and Democrats will hold North Carolina. So we move on to the House map. And a lot of these seats have already been filled in, essentially. It's up to us to fill out the toss-up races here that have been designated as toss-ups. And the first one is Alaska at large, Mary Peltola. This is a really tough one. Alaska has a very strange and weird electoral system. It's going to be close. She's a fake moderate. Honestly, I'd say she probably narrowly finds a way to, end up winning. She's got the Murkowski endorsement. She's going to tout that, even though I think Murkowski might be switching parties pretty soon, to be honest. But we'll have to see. But I do think Alaska, it's going to be super close. Trump's going to win the state with ease. But I think that down ballot, it's kind of a weird state, kind of like Maine, where you see more ticket splitting based on that. So Arizona, Republicans are doing extraordinarily well in the early voting. Some people will say there's going to be some Republicans that will defect because they don't like Trump or whatever. You have like the McCain types, and that's true, but down ballot, they're typically more Republican. I think David Schweikert narrowly holds on. I think Juan Ciscomani is as well going to end up holding on too. And I think that in terms of these California races, we can analyze these. Where Republicans in the early vote, it's a little bit more indicative because the state does vote mostly by mail and Republicans are doing a relatively good job. I think the state is going to move to the right. And I do believe that you look at all these House races here, honestly, I think a lot of them are indeed going to be holds. I think that Duarte is going to end up winning that race there. You have Hispanic trends in certain places, and Republicans overall just doing a decent job, and you're going to see some ticket splitting as well. David Valadao, I believe that he probably is going to end up holding on. Mike Garcia, for some reason, he just won't go down. You have Ken Calvert, I think he holds on. I think Michelle Steele is going to win as well. So we'll fill these all out here. So Republicans don't lose any seats in California, partially because I think Trump is going to improve enough, and down ballot Republicans are going to outrun him in certain places significantly. So you have Colorado's 8th congressional district. And I believe that Colorado's 8th is going to stay Democrat narrowly. Colorado is just not the state it was back in like even 2016 when Donald Trump was running. Gabe Evans is a strong candidate, but I still think it's just not going to be enough. Maybe if the immigration issue ends up having a little bit more of an impact there in like the Aurora area, but other than that, I just don't see it. So we'll go to Iowa. I don't care what the Seltzer poll says. It is garbage. It's not going to age well. Even if Donald Trump doesn't have a good night, I think everybody can admit that. I think Mariannette Miller-Meeks, she's probably going to end up winning by, I'd say close to 5. I think Zach Nunn holds on. Every single person that I've talked to in Iowa, they're not worried about any of the congressional districts. I have no reason to believe that poll is going to hold up. So Maine 2nd District, Jared Golden, he always finds some way to hold on. Austin Theroux, or however you pronounce his name, is a strong candidate. But Jared Golden, I do believe that just because of the crossover, just because he's distanced himself from Kamala Harris, it might be enough with ranked choice voting to narrowly hold on this cycle, just narrowly. And then we go to Michigan's 7th District. Alyssa Slotkin, she's running for the U.S. Senate there. That is a district that down-ballot Republicans probably do outrun Donald Trump in. Trump might improve there. I think you could see Tom Barrett narrowly flipping that district. I think in the 8th District, Donald Trump is going to improve, but I think you could make a case where the Democrats narrowly end up holding on to the 8th District just because of the fact that it's more ancestrally Democrat down-ballot. And I think that's one of those districts where Democrats might outrun Trump down-ballot. And I think that in terms of the Michigan's 10th race, John James, he'll hold with no problem. Ryan Zinke should hold in Montana. The North Carolina's 1st District, Don Davis, it's really moving right off a cliff, and I think that that's just going to be enough to narrowly give Lori Buckout the victory there. So you have North Carolina's 6th, that's basically safe. North Carolina's 13th, that should be safe, as well as the 14th seat, just because these are kind of new seats here. Nebraska's 2nd, yeah, Don Bacon, I think this is the year he finally goes down. The Republicans flirting with winner-take-all, but not actually following through is probably going to end up hurting them, and Bacon also signed on to that as well. New Jersey's 7th District, yeah, I think that Thomas Keene is going to win that race there. I think Gabe Vasquez in the 2nd District, he'll narrowly hold on. I think in New York's 4th, D'Esposito probably falls a little bit short. I think Lawler does hold. Pat Ryan, I think he ends up holding on there. The 19th District is tough. I think Trump is going to improve in New York. This district, though, is he going to make massive gains upstate? I mean, it's possible. This is a really tough one to predict. I probably would lean towards a very narrow hold for Molinaro there, but I think Brandon Williams falls short. I think Marcy Kaptur holds on. She usually overperforms. Amelia Sykes probably holds on as well. I think Chavez DeRemer ends up losing that race there in Oregon. She definitely was carried in part by the Drazen coattails, and she's facing a much stronger candidate this time around. So Pennsylvania's 7th and 8th districts, this is where things get interesting. Susan Wild and Matt Cartwright, these are districts where Biden did have a unique point of strength in. And down-ballot effects are huge in these places. I do expect Donald Trump to outperform in both of those districts. I think that you could make a case that these districts do end up flipping just narrowly. Maybe Cartwright does manage to hold on because it is more ancestrally Democrat, but I think the 7th, you could make a case it flips. The 10th District, Scott Perry, I think Scott Perry's going to hold on just fine. Even Dr. Oz won that district in 2022. In the 17th District, Chris DeLuzio, he's going to hold on. Gonzalez will hold on in the 34th. It's going to be close, though. Kiggins will win in Virginia's 2nd. Spanberger is retiring. I really want Derek Anderson to win. But again, this is a race that the presidential margin will dictate. I think it could get closer. But right now, I really, really don't like Eugene Vindman, but I think that he probably is going to win that race there. You're going from one deep state person in Spanberger to another, basically. And then in Washington's 3rd, you have Joe Kent. He's running a stronger campaign this time around. Trump's on the ballot. I don't think that Republicans are going to be caught as off guard this time. I think Kent narrowly is going to win that race there in Washington's 3rd, and I think Van Orden will hold on in Wisconsin's 3rd. So this is the final House prediction that we have. Republicans will end up with 222 House seats, the same amount of House seats they had at the end of the 2022 midterms. So without further ado, we can predict the Senate races, which, again, Republicans, if they hold the House and Trump wins and they get the Senate, they get a trifecta. And this map is like a cakewalk for Republicans. They've never really had a better map than this, especially with Donald Trump on the ballot. I believe, obviously, Utah, Wyoming, Nebraska, one of the Nebraskas. The other one is a little bit more interesting, but I still think it's going to hold in the likely column. Then you have Missouri, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Mississippi in the safe Republican column, as well as Indiana. And honestly, Florida. I think Trump's going to win it by more than 10. I don't think Rick Scott lags behind by much. And also in that Nebraska district, by the way, there's an independent who's masquerading as like a moderate when he's clearly aligned with the Democrats. He's going to get a lot of Democrat votes. He's going to get some crossover. It could be under 10, but Deb Fischer is going to hold on just fine. And also North Dakota there should be in the safe Republican column. On the Democrat side, California, Hawaii, Washington, New York, Vermont, Maine at large, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Minnesota should all be in the safe Democrat column, meaning that these states are taken by either side by more than 10 percentage points. If it's likely, it's 5 to 10, which we can fill out the likely states now. I believe Texas is one of them. Ted Cruz, he's kind of polarizing. But again, he's not taking his victory for granted as much as he was in 2018. And you have Donald Trump on the ballot. I think he probably will underperform Donald Trump in certain places. But I don't think Colin Allred's like a very good fit for South Texas either. He didn't do so well there in the primary. And Cruz being tied to Trump, I think he'll do just fine. And he may even outrun Trump in some counties. But regardless, I expect him to win by probably around 5 to 6 as things stand right now. Also, the state of Montana, where you have John Tester, who's running, and he is the current incumbent, and he votes with Biden basically 100% of the time. You're running a strong Republican against him in Tim Sheehy, who most experts have winning, by the way. We'll get to Ohio in a minute here, but Montana, you look at the polls in Montana, and usually polls have underestimated some of these down ballot Republican candidates running in places like Montana, but already Sheehy's polling above 50% right now. It's possible the undecideds even break his way. The magic is gone with John Tester. Tim Sheehy is going to end up winning that race there. And on the Democrat side, we have several seats that are going to go to them by a likely margin. Virginia, Hung Cao, he's a strong candidate in some ways, but he's going up against Tim Kaine. And I think that he might possibly run in line with Donald Trump if it's a good night for him. But still, I expect Tim Kaine to win the state by around like 7 to 8 or so in the state of Virginia over Hung Cao. And then you have the state of New Mexico, where Republicans are running Nella Dominici, who is the daughter of a former electoral juggernaut. They're running her against Martin Heinrich. I think he's going to win, but I don't think it's going to be by like a double-digit margin. I think he wins by around like 6 or 7 or so. So without further ado, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Senate races left on this map to fill out, and we are going to start off on the East Coast, either in the lean or the tilt column. Keep in mind, the lean column is 2 to 5 percentage points of a win for either side. The tilt column is a win for either side that's going to be under 2 percentage points. So we're going to start off in the state of Pennsylvania. Dave McCormick is kind of shocking a lot of people right now because he's running an extraordinarily strong campaign against Bob Casey, who has been known as the favorite son of Pennsylvania because his father was a popular, actually moderate Democrat senator in the state. But still, the magic is kind of wearing off. And Donald Trump is on the ballot in Pennsylvania, and currently he is the favorite, according to a lot of experts, to win Pennsylvania. I think a lot of people would agree that at worst, it's like a toss-up. At best, it's like tilt Republican for Donald Trump. Dave McCormick, is he going to lag behind Donald Trump? I think it depends on where. I think if you look at the map here, in the Philadelphia suburbs, he might actually overperform Donald Trump. In some of these more ancestrally Democrat rural areas, he's probably going to underperform Donald Trump. But I think that Casey is going to be in for the fight of his political life. I really do. This is one of those races where Casey's not polling at 50. He's polling at 48.4. And Dave McCormick is not far behind. You would anticipate if the undecideds are Trump voters that they're going to break against the incumbent Democrat. They're going to break in favor of Dave McCormick. Is it going to be enough to get him the victory, though. This is a really, really tough call. Casey, that name still, with a lot of these older voters who will be voting for Donald Trump, there's still some resonance there, but I don't expect the ticket split to be any more than like 2 points. But I do believe that right now, it's really tough. It's really tough. I initially said Trump would have to win the state by 4 points like a year ago for McCormick to get carried over. Now it's like, is he going to win it by 2 for him to get carried over? This is a razor-thin state. I encourage people to get out and vote regardless of where they are, and don't split tickets. And friends, don't let friends split tickets, by the way. So we'll be moving on to the state of Ohio, where Bernie Moreno, for much of the election cycle, he was losing the polls significantly. He's actually retaken the lead. Even Morning Compost has him in the lead, but you look at this, there's a lot of undecideds, and those undecideds are overwhelmingly Trump voters, and we saw what happened when that was the case in the primary. And while this isn't entirely a perfect one-to-one, it is true that Trump on the ballot, you have a lot of people who are going to vote for the Republican candidates down ballot, even if they don't answer that way in a poll or they don't know the candidates. When the ballot's in front of them, there's not going to be a lot of ticket splitting. I think Bernie Moreno is going to end up winning by 4. Sherrod Brown, one of the fakest moderates in the world, I don't believe he's going to be able to hold on, especially with Donald Trump on the ballot. And again, this is the same guy who matched Obama's percentage in the state in 2012. He outran him margin-wise, but keep in mind the third-party candidate in 2012 in the Ohio Senate race was taking votes away from Josh Mandel. I believe that Sherrod Brown is going to go down and Bernie Moreno is going to win the Senate race there. And it's an indicator to watch tomorrow night, because if the early returns are showing Trump and Moreno just within a few points of each other, it's very, possible that ticket splitting's even lower than we think, and maybe it's good news for somebody like McCormick in Pennsylvania or Kari Lake in Arizona. So without further ado, Michigan. This is an interesting one. Mike Rogers, he's kind of running I guess you would say more lackluster campaign compared to somebody like an Eric Hovde in Wisconsin or Dave McCormick in Pennsylvania, Alyssa Slotkin. This is definitely going to be a race that's, I guess you would say, somewhat competitive. I do believe Slotkin is going to end up outperforming Kamala Harris in the state of Michigan. I think Rogers is going to lag behind. I think in some of the parts of, I guess you would say, mid-Michigan, Slotkin's going to do better. I think Oakland County might be a little bit of a wash. I think you'll probably see Rogers do better in places like West Michigan, where it's more ancestrally Republican, where there's more like never Trump Republicans. But places like Macomb County, I'm not saying he's going to lag way too far behind because Donald Trump is on the ballot. But if Trump takes like Macomb by 10 or 11, for example, I think Rogers is only going to take Macomb by like 6. And those margins there definitely matter. This is going to be a very, very close race compared to maybe how a lot of people saw it a year ago. But I still believe that Mike Rogers is going to end up falling short, probably by around 2 points or so, give or take. I'll probably put it in the tilt Democrat column, but closer to lean. Now we go to Wisconsin. This is a race that was not seen as all that close about a couple of months ago, according to a lot of these experts, but now it's really, really narrowed. Eric Hovde has all the momentum, and he's doing really well down the stretch, and you're seeing this here. Tammy Baldwin, she's definitely somebody who's had this like working class LARP about her for a long time. And Hovde has really been hammering that home about her corruption, big pharma, all this stuff, all the ties that she has. That doesn't play out too well in a very, populist state like Wisconsin. And Hovde is kind of branding himself as like a more populist Republican, even though they've tried to brand him as this like out of touch elite. I don't really think it's working. That's not what the polls are really showing. And I think that in terms of Wisconsin, there will be some Harris-Hovde voters in certain parts of Waukesha and Ozaukee counties, maybe even a little bit in Dane. I think there will be some like Trump-Baldwin rural voters, but I think that there's going to be a lot less of them than I would have thought there would have been a couple of months ago. And I think that as a result, Eric Hovde is going to end up winning this election. I think the polls, obviously, Wisconsin, they do underestimate Republicans, especially when Trump is on the ballot. And I do believe that Hovde and Trump probably run relatively in line with each other at the end of the day. And I think that race is going to flip. So there's 2 more, Arizona and Nevada. The state of Arizona, this is an interesting one because Republicans are doing so well in terms of the early voting, and even Donald Trump is doing very well in the polls. And in terms of these Senate race polls, though, Kari Lake is lagging behind. It is true the polling has tightened. Indeed, it has. But still, again, I do expect there to be some ticket splitting because Arizona is a ticket splitting state. Gallego has spent a ridiculous amount of money trying to brand himself as like this moderate, even though he has a really radical voting record, and he's trying to capitalize on Kari Lake's polarization in order to win. I think you're going to see a lot of Hispanic voters move to Trump, but I think down ballot, a good chunk of them are probably going to end up voting for Gallego. I think it's going to be relatively close compared to some people's expectations, but I think that Gallego probably wins by, around 3 points, give or take a point or so. But if Donald Trump is a really big showing on election day, it's possible Kari Lake could be carried, no pun intended. Similar thing with Nevada as well, where Republicans are doing extraordinarily well in the early voting. They were getting outvoted by like 40,000 at the end of the day in the early vote back in 2020. Now it's turned on its head, and Republicans are the ones with the firewall. And that's like an 80,000 net vote gain because Republicans do have this 43,000 firewall that they've built this year. And that wasn't even the case in the midterms when Republicans did run relatively competitive in the state of Nevada. But still, that's besides the point. The one thing we do know is that this race is between Jackie Rosen, who's an incumbent, and Sam Brown, who is the Republican candidate. And while I do expect Donald Trump to gain with a lot of independent voters in the state of Nevada, and while I don't think there's going to be a massive crossover for Jackie Rosen, I still believe that you're probably going to see a narrow victory for Rosen at the end of the day. Though Brown does have a lot of the momentum, I don't think that he's going to lose by 5 points when the early vote is showing the data that it's showing. And while it's not perfect, and it is true we don't know who those people are voting for, what we do know is that Nevada is one of the very few states that 85 to 90% of the votes that are going to be cast in Nevada are usually early, and that was the case in not just 2020, but also the midterms post-COVID. So either way, it does seem as if Republicans are going to make gains, but I'm not ready to say it's quite enough. So this is the final Senate map as well. So Republicans will have a net gain of 4 seats in the Senate. They will pick up West Virginia. They will flip the state of Montana, the state of Ohio, and also the state of Wisconsin. It's possible if they have a very, very good night, they could flip some of these other seats as well. But right now, I'd probably put them at about 53. As for the House, we have them holding steady at 222. And the governorships, there will be 0 net change. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below. And everybody get out and vote. Thanks for watching, guys. Red Eagle out.